Toby's new shed. It was a wet and windy day on the island of Sodor. The engines were working hard. Henry pulled freight. Gordon pulled the express. And Thomas was taking freight cars to Arlesdale End. As he arrived, Thomas saw lots of birds chirping. Thomas thought their singing was lovely. Then he saw Toby coming out of his shed. Puffed Toby. Thomas was surprised. Toby was very wet. Toby rang his bell as he steamed away. Thomas looked at the roof of Toby's shed. It was full of holes. Worried Thomas. Thomas decided to tell Sir Topham Hatt about Toby's roof. Boomed Sir Topham Hatt. Tooted Thomas. Said Sir Topham Hatt. Then Toby puffed in with Henrietta to pick up some passengers. Tooted Thomas. Toby looked worried, but all his passengers were now on board, and he had to leave. Thought Thomas. First, Thomas had to collect the workmen. At Toby's shed, the birds were still chirping. The workmen began to take down the old roof. Thomas met Percy at the junction. Percy was excited. Peep Percy. Tooted Thomas. Peep Percy. Puff Thomas. Chuff Percy. Later, Thomas picked up the lumber for Toby's new roof. He showed it to Toby. He tooted. Toby looked worried. Wheezed Thomas. Toby wanted to say something, but before he could, Thomas whistled. And Thomas chuffed away. In no time at all, Toby's roof was finished. Thomas thought it looked lovely. Whistled Thomas proudly. But Toby looked sadder than ever. Puffed Thomas. Toby sighed. Thomas added. Wheezed Toby sadly. Thomas was surprised. He watched Toby chuff slowly and sadly into his shed. Thomas puffed slowly along. He had never felt so miserable. Just then, Thomas saw the new home Percy had delivered for Farmer McColl's doves. It gave Thomas an idea. Thomas steamed over to the lumberyard. He could see the lumber from Toby's old roof was still there. He asked the workmen to build a new birdhouse out of the old lumber. Puffed Thomas. Soon, the new birdhouse was finished. Thomas chuffed excitedly to Toby's shed. the workmen put up the birdhouse. Birds came to nest in it right away. Toby listened. He was very happy. His friends had returned. There were now more birds chirping than ever before. And now Toby would also be nice and dry in his new shed. Chuffed Toby. And so was Thomas.